So, Victoria Rothwell, welcome to the Disenfranchised. How are you doing today?
I'm really well, thank you. And thank you so much for inviting me on today.
It's a pleasure. I'm looking forward to speaking with you. I've seen you all over LinkedIn recently, and yeah, it's quite interesting to see what's happening with your business. So I'd like to get stuck into that in a little while. But before we do, I just want to find out, what was your first job after education?
My first job after education would be straight from university, and I was a PA to the Christmas decorating team based in Stockport, and I looked after their directors and sat and shared my office with Father Christmas.
Wow. Is that a full-time job all year round, or is that something that only was kind of seasonal
Yes.
for you?
Yeah, no, it was full time, which amazed me. But yeah, everything kicked off sort of March, April, ready for December, and then just kept rolling and rolling. But yeah, it was interesting, an eye opener into all year round Christmas.
Wow. So what did you study at university, and how did you find that job?
I studied fashion and textiles at university, and coming straight out of uni, like most students, I needed a job. And whilst I was based in Manchester, sending my CV out to a million people, I just landed on it and took it, and had probably about the best 6 months I've had out of university. It was brilliant, actually. It was really good, a really good job. It was really good fun.
Yeah, sounds quite cool. So fashion and textiles. So is that what you wanted to do with your career? And did you
Yes,
end up moving into that world?
yeah, ever since little, I always wanted to do fashion and be in that kind of world. And then after the job, whilst I was at the job with the Christmas people, I got my first job in fashion as a garment technologist. So I did that for 10 years, working my way up to senior garment technologist, and I loved it. I loved every part of it, the travel around the world, the meetings in London. Yeah, I used to do half a week in London, half a week in Manchester. And yeah, it was brilliant. It was everything I thought it was going to be. It was really good. Loved it.
Cool. So you have to forgive me. What does a garment technologist do? I can have a guess.
That is a good question. So garment technologist basically does, in short form, I guess, when a designer designs the piece, I then make it a technical drawing so it can get run through production. And then I see all the fits with the customers to get the right fit for their client. And then it gets run through production, and I oversee it, and then it gets delivered, and it's thousands in the shop, and that's it in its basic format. That's what I did.
Right. Okay. So you're making kind of tweaks to the design so that they're technically can be built correctly,
so
rather
they can
than
actually be made. Yeah.
Ah, right. That's interesting. So what sort of brands were you doing this for? If you're allowed to say.
I worked for a knitwear manufacturer, and we looked after everybody from Karen Millen, Marks and Spencer's, Wallace, French Connection, and then all the way down to the supermarkets, Asda, Sainsbury's, Tesco's. So quite a vast variety. And like with all fashion things, everything starts from the runway, and then little tweaks get made depending on your price point as you go further down the chain.
Yeah, fantastic. So you mentioned some travel there as well. So was that going to fashion shows and things like this, or was it visiting factories?
All behind the scenes. Yeah, all behind the scenes. I got the glamour of all the factories. So they used to go to Hong Kong, China, Bangladesh, all those kind of places. Obviously, Hong Kong was the best bit because there were no factories there. That was just the client side and the partying side. Yeah. But yeah, a lot of it was factory based. But I loved that because it was an insight into a world that you'd never see on a day-to-day basis. So it was quite good.
I bet it's really fascinating. Yeah, definitely. So how long were you in that world for, and yeah, what kind of happened next?
So I was in that world just over 10 years. And then I got married and decided that we'd start a family, and had my son 9 years ago. And then, yeah, I tried to go back into that world, but I just couldn't. It just didn't work. The travel didn't work with my son. And I felt like I was spending more time away from him than I was with him. So I quit.
So you did actually go back then.
Yeah.
How old was your son when you went back to
He was 17 months when I went back to work. I took some time out because I wasn't very well after the birth. So it took a lot longer maternity than I would have normally took. And then, it was about 17 months when I went back to work. I did about 9 months and then it wasn't for me. Just didn't work.
So what sort of hours were you expected to work, and what was the travel like? Was it, a week at a time, or?
Just the normal hours, like it was all 9 to 5 when I went back into work, and the travel was just like week or 10 days. Maximum was 2 weeks away. But yeah, it was just the travel and the fact that he was in nursery for so long in a day. It just didn't sit right with me. It's not why I had my children, even though I loved my job, and I did love my job. It wasn't right.
No, I can get that completely, especially when they're in those ages, like between 2 to 5, when they're really developing fast into their personalities, aren't they? Yeah. It's something that I'm glad I had the opportunity to not work too far away from where I lived, so that I could be there for the kids. They still went into nursery, in things like this, but I love being able to spend time with them. And actually the whole lockdown stuff 2 years ago, it meant I got to spend more time with them, my two, which I think they were 3 and 5 when the lockdown started, I guess. So yeah, it was great to see them every lunchtime even. So I can get where you're coming from completely. So that's quite a big decision to take though, isn't it? Obviously the income must have been difficult to take that hit. So what did you have any plans from that point onwards as to what you might do?
No, I didn't have any plans. I just knew that I didn't want to not be there for my son. And then whilst I took some time out to decide what it was I actually wanted to do, because I didn't want to walk away from the fashion industry completely, I decided to set up my own business, my first own business, which was a cashmere business. So I did the whole thing from design through to production, and then I sold it on the website, online, and then at like winter fairs and things like that. So I did that for 12-18 months, and then my second winter I really caught some traction, and it was really starting to pick up and really go, and it was like brilliant. And then I got pregnant with twins, and I was a bit like, oh, that's a bit of a game changer.
Yeah, definitely.
I can't strap both of them to my body and carry on.
Yeah, maybe expecting one more is okay, but when you get twins, that's another, completely different ball game. I've seen quite a few friends that have gone through that actually. The surprise of their second lot. But before we kind of go into what that meant for you, I'd like to find out that the cashmere garments and selling them. You mentioned they're going to kind of shows and things like this. I always look at that and think, are these people actually making money from it? Is it something that's, sustaining their lifestyle, or is it just kind of something that's on the side? What was it for you? Was it a full-time job, or was it kind of?
It was a job that worked around my son. It is sustainable if you get the right fairs, but obviously at the beginning it's a lot of trial and error. What fairs work and what fairs don't, and there's quite a bit of initial cost, because the bigger fairs cost a lot more to set up and to go. It was very fortunate because obviously I'm married, so we had a dual income. My income at that point when I started the business wasn't a massive impact on our life, because we'd got used to living off my husband's finances. But yeah, when, like I say, the second winter it was really starting to go, and you could actually see the potential and the money coming in, and the return on investment was coming back. So yeah, I would say if you've got the right product and the right fairs, and then that's when you start meeting your clients and doing the client face to face, you start getting people start coming back, and people start following you then and trying to pinpoint you out at the fairs, that are you going to this fair, are you going to that fair? So I was getting into that mode just before I found out about the babies.
Yeah, cool. So I guess it's like most businesses then, isn't it? It's a slow burn, no guarantee of success. You've just got to keep on trying to find the right avenues and honing it into a system or a process for yourself that works, I guess. So
Yeah.
That's cool. That's interesting to find out. So having twins then, like we say, is a bit of a game changer, right? So what happened to that business then? And I'm guessing you took some time out, right?
Well, I carried on when I was pregnant. A lot. I remember doing my last show. It was a summer show actually, because I had a bit of summer knitwear when I was, oh gosh, I must have been about 7 months pregnant, and I was like the size of a whale. And I did that last show, and then I took some time out. I had the babies, and then I did another show that Christmas. My girls were born in the August, and I did another show that Christmas. And my mum and dad were very hands-on and helped me. But my parents were in their late 60s, early 70s by then. And my mum was just like, I can't do it anymore. And I can't have all three of them. And I was like, fair enough. I get it. I completely get it. So yeah, we took the decision to shut the business down, because without doing the fairs, the online revenue wasn't enough to warrant it keep going. So I just had to shut it down and stop and sell all my stock off.
Yeah. So another step out of the fashion world then for you, isn't it? And I guess that must have been tough, but it's an easy decision to make, I guess. I mean, did you find that was it an easy decision for you to make?
I think I felt more lost after the second time I came out, because I really didn't know what to do then, because I was a bit like, well, I've tried it, the home working bit, and obviously coming up with the twins, it's not going to work. So I found it difficult, I think, to be at home with 3 children and be like, well, what do I do now? And it literally is, what do I do now? And I did struggle with that for a while, because I'm not one to not work. I found it really difficult not to not work, but not to have an idea of what I wanted to do or what my next step was. I struggled with that quite a bit, actually. Yeah, that was difficult.
It's quite difficult. I'd imagine having that headspace as well to be able to think when you've got twins that I'm pretty certain have been tearing lumps out of each other, and the older one winding them up but still angelic, something like this. This is the typical sort of pattern I see. I mean, I see it in my kids, the same thing. So it's probably quite difficult when you're in those moments to think, okay, I'm going to set aside an hour or two to work out my future. So
yeah, there's no hours to set aside, none at all. I think for the first 12 months of the girls being born, we were awake for 95% of that time.
Oh, Jesus, so tough, right? So what was your kind of next step then? When did you or how did you find your way back into some form of working life?
I guess, but well, my husband and I sat down and was like, look, I need to do something. I'm going to try and go back into the fashion world and try and get a job and look at getting a nanny, because obviously the cost of nursery for 3 would have been the same cost of having a nanny, but I'd have had more flexibility with a nanny. And she'd have been at home and the children would have still been at home, and they'd have had their own room and their own routine, and we wouldn't be dragging them around here, there and everywhere. So we did look at that. And on the proviso of looking at that, we also started looking at getting some help around the home, as in a cleaner or ironing services or somebody just to take that load off. Because I didn't want that to be part of the nanny's job. I wanted her to be me with the children, basically.
Sure.
And it was kind of looking for that housekeeping scenario that didn't exist, that I wanted, that didn't exist, that led me to think, do you know what, there's a bit of a gap in the market here. Could I possibly come up with something that filled it? And that's why I never went back into fashion, because I found something that filled that gap. So yeah, which is why the next business started.
Yeah, sure. And was it called The Beautiful Method then?
The Beautiful Method, yeah. Which, yeah, was again a random sort of name, but it fitted because I wanted a method that didn't exist, and I wanted my home to be beautiful. So it would just sort of lent itself that it became The Beautiful Method. And it was everything I was looking for in a housekeeping service that I just couldn't find.
Cool. We'll come on to that in a second. But how did you how long did it take you to come up with that name? Because I know a lot of people that have started cleaning businesses, and they normally go with their surname or something like this, you know, such and such services. So yeah, did you set out to? I'm kind of wanting to break down that process a little bit with you. So like, did you decide, right, I want to call it something that's going to be catchy, or was it just talk me through that process, I guess.
I guess I wanted it to sound like, I wanted a name that I could put different umbrellas underneath. So even though it is predominantly housekeeping and cleaning services, I wanted a name that wasn't just specific, like Molly Mop or cleaning with such and such a body, because I wanted to have scope to do other things. So we do like a lot of, at Christmas time, we do a lot of Christmas present wrapping. We do dog walking. We do other services that come under household management. So I felt like if it was just putting out something cleaning, then people would just come to us because they wanted a cleaner. But the girls that work for me and work for us are not just cleaners. They help you manage your house, which is what I needed when I went back to work, and which is what the essence of the business was.
Okay, so talk me through the services then, and what you were looking for, and what you're kind of offering now as a business.
So I guess at the moment it is predominantly housekeeping. We do domestic cleaning like once a week, twice a week, but then we do daily housekeeping, where we'll come in and we'll put the shopping away, we'll do the laundry, we'll do the dryer, we'll do the ironing. We will come in and, like, say you get up in the morning, have your breakfast, and then everybody dashes out to where they go. We come in and reset the whole house back up, so it's done when you come back, which to me is not just cleaning. That's that little bit more, so you don't have to worry about anything. And then things like dog walking, or just popping in to feed the pets, let them out so they're not on their own. Or sometimes we go and stroke a client's guinea pigs because they don't want them to be by themselves for the whole day. It's all these little things that make us, what I feel, different to the general cleaner around the corner. Like I say, Christmas and Easter, we'll get Easter eggs and we'll bring them round if they want us to collect them for the children, or we'll wrap all the Christmas presents. We have been known to write Christmas cards, those kind of things, which it takes time. And if you're a woman in a household and you've got 3 or 4 children and your husband works and you work, those little things need to be managed by somebody else, but somebody that knows you and that knows your personality, and that you can still bring that same warmth, even though we've took that job away and we're doing it for them. From their outside world point of view, it still needs to feel like it's coming from them.
So that's interesting, because it makes me think of 2 things. So the first one is we've recently got a cleaner for myself and my wife. So I'm doing these podcasts in my evenings or weekends, and full-time work at the same time, as well as a few other bits and pieces that I'm doing. So I don't have too much time, outside of looking after the kids to do some of those bits. And she's training to become a teacher, so it made sense for us to bring somebody in to clean the house. But what I find is that before the cleaner arrives, we run around cleaning up the house, putting all the stuff away, which I think when you speak to anyone who's got a cleaner, that's what they do. They clean before the cleaner gets there, right? And I guess in what you're saying you do is you take away that element, almost, where you put things away for them and organise the house.
And put all the pots away, and we do all sorts, rather than just go in and clean. I mean, don't get me wrong, we do offer that service because not everybody wants the full housekeeping service, but majority of our clients prefer us to just go in and fix everything, so when they walk back through the front door at 6 o'clock at night, everything is perfect and put away, and the shopping's been put away, and they don't have to think about it, and the milk's been brought in, and all of those things, and the post is on the desk ready to be opened. All of those little things they don't have to worry about because they're done. And that's where we differ, I feel, to other places out there that you can get a domestic cleaner.
Definitely. And the second thing it makes me think about is actually Mary Poppins, in many ways, because that's the sort of thing that Mary Poppins was doing. I know she was a nanny, but I think she was doing a lot of the tidying around the house and things like this. And I guess I associate with that it's you have to have quite a significant income to be able to afford somebody who's going to be available on hand to do that. So I don't want to ask you the pricing, but Are your clients typically people that are perhaps slightly more well off, or working in high paid corporate jobs?
I would say for our housekeeping side, yes, they are more often than not a higher paid dual income family.
Sure.
But then, like I say, we will work to every budget. Some of our clients who do want the cleaning services and do want that little bit extra, we always start with such a comprehensive checklist at the beginning of our quotation with them that they can pick, and then it's almost like a pick and mix. They can pick the bits that are important and discard the bits that are not that important, that will not add value to their lives. So even though it does sound like it is built for the masses, because I know everybody deserves that little bit of added value, whether you're a single parent with not a high impact income or you're a dual family with a high income. We're available to everybody, and we have got clients across a broad range of spectrum. It's not just higher end. We've got all sorts of clients on our books, and like I say, everybody gets the same service, and everybody starts off with that comprehensive checklist of what adds value to their life, what will make a difference to their weekly life or daily life, depending on how many times a week they have us.
So what I like about that is that you're personalising the service to the individual households, and I think in today's world, personalisation is so key for any service that's out there. I find it frustrating when I can't tweak things. Maybe that's just me, but I want it to fit around me and work for me, and I think that's what you're saying you're offering there. And there's something else I saw in your marketing that was really interesting, and that was giving you back the gift of time. I think that's something that resonates really, really strongly with me, and that's actually what made me take that decision to have the cleaner. Ultimately, was that time I can use that more effectively to spend with my children, helping them to learn to ride their bikes, or on my work and my business, or my wife's education. As she's learning to be a teacher. So I think that's something that's really important. You mentioned it as well a few times there. So the value side of things. So
I mean, you can't. People say you can't buy time, and you can't buy time minute for minute, but you can buy a service that allows you that time back. And whether that's our service or another cleaning service or a gardening service or anything, you can buy time in that way, and that's important. That's invaluable. You just can't put a price on that, I don't think. And from experience, I couldn't. The weekends, the evenings, and sitting down with the kids at dinner and hearing the stories that they come up with. If I was in a world where it's 9 to 5, I would never hear those stories. And that, to me, you can't buy that.
Yeah, exactly. That's great. So starting this business then, the Beautiful Method, what challenges did you find? Because I'm guessing it's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would be having these large thriving businesses, right? So, what challenges were you facing?
Oh gosh, what challenges? There's been many, many challenges. I think a lot of it, because obviously it was brand new to me when I started this. Apart from knowing what, as a mum, I needed if I went back to work, I didn't know much else. And I mean, I know I'd done a business before, but I'd never taken on staff. I'd never gone out and done client quotes in person, and any of that. So all of that was a massive learning curve. And I think the biggest thing is it's the drive and the motivation to keep doing it day in, day out. Because there's many a times I've sat down and gone, oh, what am I doing? Why am I bothering? And then I just think, well, I am bothering because I know how important this service would be to me. And I have loads of other mum friends, when I did a lot of market research, that would be like, yes, I want that service. I need that service. And I'm like, that's the thing that keeps me going. So I am just one mum, and I've got loads of mums that work for me and loads of mums that have been in and out of the business, and we all look after other mums. And that's what keeps us going, really. And that's my motivation to keep going. And that's the thing that I have to dig deep when days get tough. And they're not all rosy. Anybody who runs a business and tells you otherwise is just telling fibs, because they're not all rosy. There are some really difficult days. But I think because I'm so close to my team, and I'm very close to my clients, we kind of all just keep each other going. And that's needed when it's challenging.
Sure. And were you receiving advice as you're building the business from any friends or family or people outside? And what was some of the most important advice you got or you received?
A lot of my advice came from my husband because he works in a very corporate world. A lot of gut. I follow my gut a lot. Which when I first started, I didn't. I was like, oh no, it can't be that, it can't be that. And I sort of started to ignore it. But then I started going with what felt right. And that's when the business started really moving forward. If it didn't feel right and it felt a bit icky, then it was a no. And I'll stand by that today. That would be for anybody. You have to go with your gut. That's the thing that drives your business forward. And the best thing I think I ever did was get myself a HR consultant to work alongside and she's an employment solicitor. The things I've learned from her about business and making sure my staff are cared for has been second to none, and that's my biggest thing.
Cool. So at what point in growing this business did you realize it was going to be successful then? What kind of, was there a moment when you went, this is working really well, this is something that is going to be a long-term solution for me?
When my waiting list was getting so long with clients, and because I'd concentrated on making sure that our reputation was second to none, people would wait, clients would wait. And I was like, this is crazy, because there's so many cleaning companies out there, and there's no point denying that. There's a lot of competition. But when you've got a waiting list of 24, I think our biggest waiting list was, and they all sat there waiting, I was like, whoa, this has got legs. This is really, like, we're doing something right here. And I think a lot of it was all based on customer service, and making sure that the staff that came on board shared the same ethos as me and shared that and had that same care in regards to what they were doing and why they were doing what they were doing for these working mums. And that built our reputation. And I think that's when I realized we were only about 7 months into the business when the waiting list started coming. And it's never not, and I've never not had a waiting list, which is just crazy.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, obviously, you're on this podcast because I know that you're in the franchising world. You franchised your business. So, when did that kind of enter into your thoughts, and were you aware of franchising before? Looking down that route as an option to grow your business.
Yes, I was aware of franchising. I've been aware of franchising for quite a few years. It's just something that you read in current affairs, and you just when you're keeping on track of stuff. And I knew, like, as my business progressed, there was a few cleaning companies that had franchised out. So I obviously thought, maybe if I did want to expand it further, this could be a model for our housekeeping service. And as I looked more into it, then it just became like a no-brainer, really, in order to reach more people, because I was getting phone calls from clients in Manchester and that kind, and Greater Manchester, and I'm like, we've got nobody up there. And they're like, oh, when you do, can you let me know? And I'm like, okay. And then I was getting calls from down south, because I was just off the website, and I'm like, we're not based down there. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute, I think this is the right time. I'm getting calls from everywhere outside of my area, that it became apparent that it needed to be franchised out. It needed to be open to other people in the country.
Sure. Why didn't you employ staff down there? Because that's perhaps an option,
Yeah, and I did look into that. And it was an option, but then it's the management side of it. It's like, I couldn't work out how to sort of best manage people that weren't in my area, without them having the motivation to grow the business in that area. Whereas with franchising, you're in essence teaching somebody else and guiding them and supporting them to run their own business. And so they're reaping the benefits of the effort they're putting in. Whereas you wouldn't necessarily get that with an employed sort of area manager, which is what you'd have to put in place if you were in different areas. And I
guess it helps you to get that quality level that you want all the time, yeah? Because
I
like you
wanted
say,
it to
somebody
be
who's 100, 200 miles away might not care quite as much as you if they're going to get the salary regardless.
exactly. And I know it works so well for me as a mum that obviously I'm not the only mum in the world that would want the option or the opportunity to actually, I can work 9 till 3. I can be at home for my children, but I can still build this business at the same time. And I don't think I'd necessarily have got that with a sales manager, because it would have had to be necessarily a longer day and not as flexible, maybe. So yeah, there was more pros to franchising. It just seemed to lend itself as a best option, really.
Yeah, cool. So how long have you been available to buy as a franchise, or how long has it been?
So we decided that we would kick this off at the beginning of lockdown. Lo and behold,
Of
we didn't
course.
know lockdown was happening. And I know, like, going, like, chatting to people and on the internet and stuff, I know quite a few franchising options have really gone well in lockdown. But with being new to the market at the beginning of lockdown and not having that franchise reputation, although I've got the local reputation, it was difficult to get ourselves out there and get ourselves known. That said, we did sign a franchisee down in Bath during lockdown. She's been going 12 months now, just over 12 months, and did really well. So yeah, and I'm in the middle of selling our Chester franchise. The franchise I own now is in the middle of being sold, which will then free me up to be there for franchisees when they come on board. So I've got more time to give them and more support to give them as that side of the business starts to grow.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. So yes, exciting time then. So it sounds like you're giving them very specific areas, maybe cities or towns, and so I'm guessing you could potentially have quite a few people. I'm 100 or so franchisees across the UK. Have you got a number in your head as to how you want to grow?
I think the way we divvied it up, because I wanted to make sure they had enough to make a sustainable business that could last them a lifetime. We've divvied up the country, so there'll be about 54 franchisees. Franchise areas. So I mean, some of them would work really well, and then obviously some places are bigger because there's not as much footfall or housing within the area, so the area is a lot bigger. But it's worked out so everybody has the same opportunity to grow in the same way or very similar way.
That's cool. I mean, 54 means they are getting quite a significant opportunity then, because I know a lot of other brands that, are sort of getting towards the 100 mark and things like this. So,
I didn't want to give them little clusters, because I wanted them to have the size that I've got here and that I've set up, because then I know from experience the growth potential in it. And then I'm not offering them something that's not achievable because I'm doing it. So it made sense to just carbon copy what I'm doing into the different areas and the different territory sizes, just to make it as transparent as possible.
Yeah, no, that's really cool. I think it makes it a good opportunity if you can have a big area to franchise, to build your business within. It makes a lot of sense. So yeah, no, that's really good. So what does the future look like for the Beautiful Method then, beyond growing the number of franchisees? Are you planning to add additional services? You mentioned earlier on that that's something you wanted for the brand, is the ability to add in other services to the portfolio.
So this year we've concentrated, and obviously with the holiday boom, we've signed a contract with Sykes Cottages. So we look after their holiday lets in the area, and the contract I've signed with them gives any potential franchisee that comes on board to sign exactly the same contract. That's all secured and sealed.
Oh wow.
So they'll come on board with the contract with Sykes Cottages, which is brilliant. So we've been concentrating on that, and then obviously all being well and that works, and we do have the option for franchisees, which is an option because it's not for everybody, to delve into the world of the commercial side. I've done a bit of it, just to test the water, just to make sure that I've got the right sort of teaching that I can support my franchisees on board if they come on board. But again, that would change the hours of the franchisee. So we've left that open to an option. It's not a definite, and they don't have to do it.
Yeah, that's cool. So this is offices and
offices,
factories maybe, or just
schools, factories if they want to go down. But obviously that will be an increased investment in equipment for factory cleaning. Mainly offices, and then you've got schools. You can do small B&Bs, boutique hotels, those kind of things. We've delved into all of those over the last before lockdown, because obviously that all shut. So we've got the experience, and it's give us the chance to sort of set that path in motion if a potential franchisee wants to delve down the commercial route.
Yeah, cool. It's really good learning about it, because I'm learning something. I didn't realize that these sorts of opportunities were out there. I have to be very honest and say, at the first kind of glance, and it was only a glance initially, I thought it was cleaning what you offered as the only service, but actually there's quite a lot more to it, and I think it's quite an interesting opportunity you've got there. So
thank you.
All that hard work's been paying off, and I can see why you've got the big list of clients in those early days, or people on the waiting list. So hopefully that continues for many years for you and your franchisees. But I want to kind of switch kind of pace a little bit now and talk about just your career as a whole. I'm wondering if there's any funny, strange, or weird stories that you've experienced.
I was trying to think about this. Nothing springs to mind, you see. The only thing that does come up, which is random and it's child related, was when I first started the Beautiful Method, and you go through all them advertising agencies ringing you up and advertise with me and blah, 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 blah. And I was on a conference call, like a Zoom, with a guy from Yell.com.
Yeah.
And I remember sitting there and we were chatting away, and my daughter, both my twins came running in. Mommy, we've had a poo. You need to come and wipe our bum. And I was like, I'm in the middle of a Zoom. Would you like to just take that outside? And that's the only thing that sticks in my mind when we talk about funny stories. All my stories are children related, because they're a massive part of my life.
Yeah.
So that Zoom got cut short very quickly, because I think
Amazing.
He was more embarrassed than I was. He didn't have children. I was kind of expecting something bad to happen, but he was like, I'll have to leave you to it.
I've got a similar story. It was one of the first kind of video calls on Teams with one of my colleagues, and I didn't notice it, but my son come running in. He had his orange crash hat on, bike helmet. He had not a string vest. He had a vest, but in my head now it's evolved into a string vest for some strange reason. But he's got a vest on, and his trousers around his ankles. He's got his shoes on, and he's basically completely naked. And he came in and said something very similar. He's, I've just been for a poo. And I was like, no. And I sort of just kind of ran to kind of deal with it, and then I kind of thought, actually, it's quite funny what happened, isn't it?
There's nothing like children to bring you back down to earth with a bump, to just make everything like, do you know what, so what?
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't really happen so much anymore, but then I guess I've moved into an office, and none of these strange things, but nobody from the other side, it doesn't really happen to them much either. So maybe it's because the kids have gone back to school, I guess, but
maybe. Yeah.
There we go. But that's good. So next question I wanted to ask is, do you have any, or what's the most inspiring or proud moment you've had in your career?
I think my proudest moment was I got invited to the House of Lords.
Oh, wow.
As when female entrepreneur did their first top 100 women in business in 2019, I think it was, and I was one of them, and I got invited to House of Lords, and we had a lunch and a few guest speakers, and I think that was the moment it dawned on me that maybe I do know what I'm doing. And when you sit on the chain, you're like, oh my gosh, yeah, I did it. So yeah, I think that was my proudest moment, and one of those light bulb moments where I was actually, you've started a business, it's successful, keep on going. So yeah, that would be my
it's really easy, isn't it, for people to think, you know, am I any good at this? You know, am I just sort of blagging it for the time being, or what? But yeah, I guess those moments help just to put an exclamation point to say, actually, you are good at this. You are able to do this, and yeah, it must be really nice to be able to reflect back on that. So yeah, cool.
So yeah, that was one of my big moments, definitely.
Yeah, I think I'd find it daunting, the House of Lords. You know, like having to dress up for the occasion and
I did. I dressed up and I ummed and ahed whether to put heels on or stick my trainers in my bag, because I'm used to running around London, so I knew what it could be like. I was like, no, I'll get a taxi from the train station, it'll be fine, we'll go straight there. Massive taxi strike. I was like, you won't with me. Didn't put my trainers in, 4-inch heels on. Oh, I've never been in so much pain in all my life. I was like, for God's sake. But yeah, I was like, oh, well, never mind.
Oh,
so yeah, I came home with blisters and happy memories.
Excellent. Well, look, I'm going to start to kind of wrap things up now. So I'm going to ask the final question, which is, if you could give one piece of advice to anybody who's looking to perhaps buy into a franchise business, whether that's yours or any others, what one piece of advice would you give to them?
Do your research the company, research the franchisor, speak to other franchisees if they're available, but do your research, because if it doesn't feel right, it's not.
Yeah, excellent. And where would you say to take a look? You know, there's obviously loads of places out there, but yeah, where
there is lots of places out there, but I think for me, I mean, I find if I want to talk to somebody or get in contact with somebody, I tend to go to LinkedIn, because you tend to see if a franchisor's on LinkedIn, you can chat with them, but then you'll see they're connected to their franchisees, and you can connect with them and have a bit of a chat. And there's just, and yeah, that's where I do most of my due diligence, is on LinkedIn, because it's an easier way to connect with people, and you can see more of their business credentials, I guess, than if you went on Facebook and looked at social side, because that doesn't tell you much. But yeah, that would be my first port of call, would be LinkedIn, and see who you can find that's connected with that particular franchisor or franchise that you're looking at, and then go from there and investigate.
I love it. You can see in many cases the staff they have. You can find out like you say, who they're connected with, what their personality's like even, can't you, in what they're posting out there. So yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. It's been great to hear your story, and thank you for sharing so much of your life and your career with us, and all the best with the beautiful method as you grow it. And have a great day. Thanks for your time.
No, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure. It's been a laugh.
Yeah, it certainly has. Thanks again.
Thank you.